Hi everybody, welcome back to CLOSEUP. We are here for the second day of North American Studios. This is our third North American Studios session of CLOSEUP. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand it over to our host, Bill Hanley, Editor-in-Chief of Dwell Magazine.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here for the third installment of North American Studios. And yesterday we had designers from all over the continent, from Vancouver to Mexico City, and all points in between. Today we're keeping it super local, and we have 3 Brooklynites on the panel, so not too far from Industry City where we're sitting. Thanks so much for joining. First up we have Jill Malik, designer of all kinds of wall coverings, based here in New York. And then the duo behind Keep, the lighting brand helmed by Susan Spiranovich, did I see that right?
Yes.
And Adam Holtzinger. Good. So the format for this session is going to be the same as the other two yesterday. We're first going to watch a quick video introducing each brand, your practice, your studios, kind of getting to know a little bit about the work. And then we'll have an informal Q&A, just kind of talking about what you're working on right now, your latest collections, and what's going to happen in the future. So I think we're starting with Jill. We can jump into the video.
Everything that I do is inspired by these rhythmic, poetic movements in nature. My name is Jill Malik, and I design wall coverings, rugs, and textiles that are inspired by fluid forms in nature that improve the well-being of a space. I started years ago as an art director and graphic designer, and when I would come home from my 9-to-5 job every day, I would go up on our 4th floor walk-up and be on the rooftop to see a pigeon fancier that lived across the street who interacted with hundreds of birds in the sky. And I decided to capture these moments in nature in everything I do. My pen kind of just wanders. And from there, the color and the scale and even the movement on the surface can be customized, and the end product for each client is completely unique. Dwellings is the new collection I'm launching this year that is inspired by animal homes. The pattern behind me, Cocoon, is one of my most favorite ones. Each formation was drawn by hand and then brought together to create this feeling of being encapsulated within a multiple of different cocoons. Here you see it contained in a space, but when it's on a long wall, these lines continue to grow out. So we can really customize it to any space that you would want. This comes with the optional sewn felt. It adds another layer of material depth and visual interests. This is the second pattern in the Dwellings collection called Reef, and it is inspired by the vibrant textures and colors that we see in underwater plants. The Reef pattern goes from light to dark in a subtle ombre pattern across the surface, and each shape within the mural is unique, coupled with hand-drawn lines to give it a sense of texture and a tactile quality. I wanted to have a spectrum of earthy colors, but have them pop at the same time. And within each mural, it goes from light to dark. So you have this very subtle ombre coloring going on within each piece. This is the nest pattern, inspired by the woven colors and textures found within animal nests. When I created this, I drew every line that you see by hand and assembled it in different orientations to make an organized organic grid on the wall. As you can see, it's non-repeating, so each line is different. There is no one cube that is the same. This is the stalactite pattern that was inspired by hanging forms in caves that change color over time. The mural starts with a very warm taupe color on the left and gradually moves into a series of corresponding lighter colors as you move across the surface. Each formation is hand-drawn, so the viewer gets the sense that these soft formations are growing along the surface. This mural was actually created for the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and it was actually the first time I had experience working in completely different materials. We used a felt artisan named Daniel Tillman to create these dimensional appliques throughout the mural. So this is another example of a custom mural that was created recently. The felt color was completely chosen by the client, and you can see these are the stitching in the back. It just shows you all of the craft that goes into creating each line. Thank you for taking the time to come to my studio today and going on this little journey with me. You can find more products and project highlights at my website, jillmalik.com.
Thanks, Jill. It was great to get a look behind the scenes at the work. Next up, we have Susan and Adam and their studio, Keep.
We take molten glass out of a furnace and turn it into beautiful objects.
I'm Susan Spiranovich.
And I'm Adam Holtzinger. We're the founders of Keep.
Our studio is located in downtown Brooklyn. Adam and I came here specifically for the creative energy that exists in New York City.
I mean, we came to Brooklyn to make glass. After years of working with artists, designers, and architects,
We knew right off the bat that we wanted to make lighting together. Lighting is what gives life to a room. It's the ultimate accessory and so important in every space.
one of our favorite things to make is our cane collection. The technique is old, but we're making it ours. We're making it new. We're making it contemporary.
What I love most about the cane series is the process. It starts with pulling out these really long rods of color. They get chopped up, rolled up, then blown up, and every part of the process has to be exact. And it's really beautiful to watch this rhythmic dance with our team. It's like we don't have to say much. Our bodies move and respond to the material, and that's really special. Keep is not just about us. It's bigger than us. It's about sharing our knowledge of this craft, and it's about connecting our hands with creative minds.
The collaboration is everything. Taking somebody else's ideas and thoughts and translating them into glass through our hands is an ultimate expression of this collaboration.
We've fabricated everything from lighting to stemware to giant gold-covered glass fingers. There's no project too big or too small. We really do thrive on working with like-minded people who are just as excited about working in glass, who love design, art, who have the same energy and excitement for this material. And to know that we have a hand in their process, that's what it's all about.
That's the difference with us. We recognize your great ideas, and together, we can create great glass.
Design, craftsmanship, attention to detail, these are all things that are super important to us, and we know that they're important to you.
There's something really magical that happens when you combine different perspectives. It breathes a whole new life into the process. Keep is working together to create something beautiful.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Adam. was very cool to see you at work at Urban Glass, a really great institution here in Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
So very different practices from wall coverings, lighting, but both emphasizing, a heavy level of craft and a heavy level of hand making. And I wanted to ask all of you, kind of how you came to do this. Jill, you said that you've been working as an art director before coming to your practice. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, I've been designing wall coverings for over 10 years now, and when I came into the field, I really wanted to impact environments. And I realized that wall coverings specifically could really change the energy and shift the mood in a room. And so I thought that was a really powerful thing to do, and it was a good use of my artistry.
Cool. And what were some of the first? Pieces? How did you? How did you arrive at the current collection? Like, what was the?
Well, my style, I would say, has shifted quite a bit from the beginning. But the one parallel that's woven in everything that I've done is fluid forms in nature. I was originally influenced by this pigeon fancier in Brooklyn, and I would watch him every day interact with these pigeons, and I really wanted to capture the fluid forms in nature that he was working with. And so everything I did was an expression of that. So that's been the parallel.
How do you kind of arrive at a given pattern? Is it a sort of, are you working at a small scale and then you decide you want to enlarge it, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the murals now that I'm doing that are completely customized to the space and are scaled quite large at times. I will start with a hand drawing, and then I will use computer technology to stream everything together and lay everything out.
Cool, yeah, and that's, when you're working through ideas, are you thinking about the end project, or are you just kind of sketching? Do you have a sense of how this is going to look at mural scale, or are you just worried about the form and the line?
I kind of, sometimes I have a general idea of how I want it to look. I create mood boards and have color palettes and a feeling, and sometimes it goes in a totally different direction. So it's pretty intuitive, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and sort of going back to that hand drawing at the beginning, and then Susan and Adam, in terms of starting to work with glass, is this something that you've done throughout your careers? How did the two of you come to it?
Well, I got sucked in. Adam is really, he was there at the beginning, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you found glass.
I mean, I had in school, art school, where we met in 1998. Cleveland Institute of Art.
You're dating us.
I know. I was a photography major, actually, and in the summertime I was giving tours for the school for prospective students. And my first tour, I had to bring around the entire school, and we went into the glass department, and I was completely blown away. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know glass was able to be blown. I'd never seen it before, and I saw the furnace and the heat and everything. I was immediately sucked in. The next day, I took a class, and the first time that I gathered the glass out of the furnace, that was it. I knew it was actually life-changing. It sounds cliche, but it's like this really, there's a switch that flipped, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So.
And I was a graphic design major, Adam and I were very close in school, and like he said, he started as a photo major, and I recall him telling me that he found glass and he was switching to glass, and I had two thoughts. The first one being like, we have a glass program? What does that even mean? And the second one was, how are you going to make money? Like, what are you going to do? What does that mean? And here we are today. I got sucked in from all the years of being present with Adam in the studio and watching, and we started collaborating, and that turned into Keep.
So yeah, I wanted to ask, how did you start working together? What was kind of the genesis of the collaboration?
I think I just showed up enough in the studio and bugged him and said, like, let's make this thing together, and some stuff. And I think we're also life partners. I think this was even before we became partners in life. But it's like my mind was just constantly going, watching him go through these processes, and I got really excited about it, and so we just started making things. Yeah.
And so what's the collaboration like? You know, what ingredient does each of you bring to the table?
Adam's a very good listener. I'm the strong personality. No, I think we're a good balance. We work really well together, thinking ideas through, and I bring sort of that graphic design background into our practice.
Yeah, and it works well. It works really well. I mean, I can do the technical part of what Susan can think up, you know, and I think the best part is the best and worst part is it never turns off. We're kind of always talking about it, always thinking about it, always trying to make it.
Yeah, I was wondering, what's the work-life balance like?
Yeah, I mean, at some point when we get home, it's like, okay, enough. Like, let's just watch Netflix or something.
Please stop talking about glass. Well, so I wanted to ask about, you know, breakout pieces for each of your studios. Like, you know, when you think you landed on something that was going to be directional for what you were going to work on in the future. And so, Jill, you know, you were talking a little bit about being inspired by the pigeons across the way. Is there a particular work or even a particular application of one of the works that
Sure.
you realize, like, okay, I'm onto something good here. This is territory I should continue to mine.
Yes, actually, and it was, you touched on it I touched on it in the video that was just shown, where I talked a little bit about the mural that I worked on for Brooklyn Botanic Garden. That was the first time I worked with murals in general, and it was also the first time that I worked in felt, especially with dimensional felt. And that sort of seeded the idea for a direction for me for wall coverings, where I would work with another artisan where he would actually sew felt into the material, which I've been selling for a couple years now. And that's really the direction I see my studio going in.
What did you kind of, collaboration generally, you mean? What did you take from that collaboration that, you know, did you incorporate some aspect of that work into how you think about things going forward? Is there a particular aspect of working with that artist that, you know, will have a lasting effect on the work that you make?
Well, I think it's the use of different materials and sort of letting go to my process and welcoming other people and collaborating with me in that way, and also really the use of dimensional materials and getting away from the idea of a flat wall covering. So I'm thinking about using different dimensional materials like leather and maybe.
But we really got to that anyway. What's coming up next? But we won't hold you to it if you want to work with something else.
But yeah, just the idea of working with dimensional materials and wall coverings is really exciting for me.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Sure. Glass.
What do you do with all of your original drawings? Do you have them archived somewhere, or do you reference them?
I don't do a good job of that actually, but I have snippets and scans kind of randomly. I do a good job of keeping my files organized, but no, I don't do that.
Are you guys good about that?
Archive, yeah.
We try to document everything as much as possible.
That's great.
Because oftentimes the things go out into the world and we don't know where they're going, or we don't get photos from designers or architects who spec or design specific products. So we try to document process as much as possible because it informs future process. And yeah, photos and video.
We like to keep we keep the best ones for ourselves, actually. We have the luxury of being able to do that. So
Totally.
kind of steal from ourselves to keep.
I mean, so for you, I mean, I have one series that I always associate with your work that you've been doing for a while, but is there a single object or a series of objects that you think represents when you really hit a stride or when you really sort of establish the identity of the studio?
I think that Sorry, I'm doing all the
No,
talking.
no.
I think that when Adam came to me and said, I really want to use these traditional Italian techniques and make patterns in a contemporary way, we went back and forth for a long time about it, and we just fell in love with making pattern with glass. And we're working on a new collection currently, dealing with pattern making in a different method. But I feel like that's sort of a signature thing for us.
Yeah, it's something that we've always really been drawn to, together. That was the one thing that clicked for both of us. And, I think for our process, that's where we hit the stride, was like we agreed on it and let's just hit it full throttle, So.
Yeah, I mean, you explain a little bit about the process in the video, but it seems really hard. Someone who's made like one attempt at making a lump of glass in my life, it seems very, very challenging to do these patterns. Was that part of the appeal?
I think so.
It's hard. It's super hard. Practice makes perfect, I guess. Yeah, that is the draw of it, is to try to perfect it.
Mm-hmm.
It's never the same thing twice, right?
Right.
And it's
Right.
like there are all these steps that lead up to the culmination of making the piece, and if you screw up anywhere in between, it's like start over,
It could take a couple days to actually make said object. So.
Yeah, the results are really, really impressive, just in terms of the visual quality and I don't know. There's something really not necessarily playful, but just kind of a little exuberant about the patterns that you create. You also work with a lot of other designers. We were just talking with Jill about collaborating with people. When did you start doing that, and what are some of maybe you can say a bit about some of the collaborations that you've worked on, because you've done a few really noteworthy things.
Sure. Would you like?
No, go ahead.
So Adam's always produced work for other designers from the beginning of his career. And when we started Keep, we knew that we wanted to maintain that element because it's inspiring to us. It's exciting. We get to try new things and meet new people. So that was a very important facet for us. And it sort of fits in with our ethos. Keep, the name of making objects people will keep, but also about keeping this craft alive. And how better to do that than to share it with people. So,
the tradition of glassmaking is, it has to be continued. If any craft gets lost, then it's a shame. So we are very passionate about doing this craft and using this medium, and the only way to kind of keep this tradition alive is exactly what you just said, is working with other people to see what they can come up with. And yeah, it is also really inspiring for us.
You got to my next question, which was going to be the origin of the name.
Bingo.
But
Nailed it.
are there a few collaborations that stick out in your mind that people should look up, people should check out?
I think a really exciting one for us, the last in-person design week, we had an event that we did a collaboration with Mark Thorpe and Luca Nicchetto, and it was a sort of bridging of the gap of Murano and Brooklyn and bringing everything together, the history, and it's like the old, the new, design, glass, all under one roof. And it's a special project for us because the relationships we made, and also, following that event, we went to Murano with those guys and got to, tour the factories, and we spent time at Vanini, and that's like the dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was kind of my mecca in a sense, walking inside of this factory, and I mean, it's pretty hallowed ground for me, and to be there and to take part in this thing that's so important to me was really kind of a life-changing event.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of feeling a part of this historical continuity. Well, Jill, for you, you mentioned the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, but are there other interiors, other projects where your mural scale works have been installed that you think are particularly noteworthy of checking out, or that you have, not to ask you to choose from among your children, but do you have favorite projects?
There's one that was installed a few months ago at the new Google headquarters in Chelsea. That was a dimensional mural using orange felt, which I wouldn't typically use, a bright orange, but I think it worked out really well, and I'm super excited about that one.
Pushing the boundaries of your palette.
Yes, it's not, I'm usually a more muted palette, but it worked out quite well.
Well, we know you're going to start working with built-up leather soon. But beyond that, is there anything coming up that should be on our radar?
Yes, next month I'm launching a collection with Carnegie Fabrics. Actually, that's a healthcare collection that I'm really excited about for healthcare wellness. So privacy curtains and wall coverings that is meant to have a hospitality palette. So I'm excited about that.
That's cool. Are there specific considerations that you're taking into account given the kind of wellness aspect of the project?
Well, the imagery and the color palette specifically were really honed in. It was inspired by outside fields, so everything sort of speaks to that, and the color palette is super light and airy. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. And how about for Keep? Are there other projects coming down the pike that should be on our radar?
We're currently working on some really beautiful lighting designed by Stephen Hall Architects for a new building in Princeton, New Jersey, and that was, I think, is an exciting project for us. One, because working with Stephen and his architects is incredible, but just the process and sort of how organically it happened. They came to us with an idea, and we came back to them with, sort of a bit of change in the idea of how it could function in glass, and they were just so wonderful to work with because it was truly a collaboration, and I feel like when there's give and take and this dialogue, that's when the most amazing stuff happens. So I think that's.
When is that set to open?
Good question.
Everyone wants to know about timelines.
I know.
No one has any idea.
It's like, well, we were delayed a year, and then I believe early 2022.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so I mean, it has been a really weird year, and with a few minutes left, I'd love to know, how the craziness of the last calendar year has affected your practices. I mean, has it been, is it minimally disruptive if you're drawing at your desk, or is it, has your work taken on some other aspects based on what we've all just been weathering?
For me, I've kind of shifted in the last couple of years to commercial projects, but my residential business hopped back on tenfold this year, which is great. Everyone was renovating their homes and moving, and so I think people in the home furnishing business were very lucky in that regard.
Yeah, it's certainly been a very visible year for Dwell, that's for sure. And how about for Keep? Have you guys, did you have a disruption to production, and have you had to pivot in any ways?
Yeah, I mean, we had a huge disruption. Everybody's had a huge disruption, but I mean, we couldn't go into the studio. It wasn't an option, it was closed. So for 3 months, we could not actually make glass. But once we were able to safely go back into the studio and navigate how to work with teams of people again, being in really close environment. Once we figured that out, it's kind of, like you were saying, it's kind of really picked up residential, the whole nine. It's been busy.
Well, it's a great note to end on. I mean, it's been wonderful to see the sense of optimism from all of the studios right now that, we're clear-eyed about, this not being over, but there is sort of kind of a localized sense that we will be making design work. This industry will move forward. So thanks so much for joining me, Jill, Susan, Adam. It was a great conversation, and good luck with the next projects. And so coming up, we've got our very last session of this edition of CLOSEUP. So I'm excited to see what WGSN has to say.